So you've been planning this move to Texas for what, 6 months, maybe even longer? You've watched the beautiful home tours on YouTube, you've run the numbers, you've had those intense late night conversations with your spouse like around 11 o'clock at night, trying to figure out how to safely transition your world over to Texas. And then last week you saw the headlines. The media is claiming the real estate market is on the verge of a massive correction, or that home prices are beginning to slide. And now you're sitting here at your kitchen table wondering, am I getting this completely wrong? Am I making a dangerous decision for my family's future? Now, before we get into a single piece of data today, before I show you a single chart or a neighborhood map, I want to tell you something right up front. This scary headline version designed for clicks and the actual street level reality across our local communities are two completely different things. See, the thing that nobody in those clickbait market crash videos ever wants to tell you is that the single thing that completely changes the entire conversation is that the housing market out here is not one uniform entity. When you look at the greater Fort Worth area, we are operating in a highly stable, deeply resilient market anchored by real family demand. That is exactly what we're doing today. I'm going to walk you through the real numbers straight from our local MLS. By the absolute end of this video, you're going to know exactly what's happening on the ground, why it's happening, and what it actually means for you and your family's future. So let's get directly into it. Now, my real estate team has helped hundreds of families buy, sell, and relocate across the greater Fort Worth area over the years. And I watched two kinds of people get it completely wrong in this market. The first kind bought a home without asking enough questions. They picked the house based on beautiful photos online before they understood the actual property type they were getting into, the true carrying costs, or the realities of local foundation maintenance. We talk about those specific things all the time on this channel. But the second kind of person, they've talked themselves completely out of moving based on national headlines that weren't describing their specific neighborhood situation. And waiting cost them terribly, either in lost time or in cost deals they would have secured if they would have just moved when they first started the process. Both of these mistakes are incredibly expensive, and both of them happen when you're working with incomplete generic information. So let me give you the complete version right now. Before you think to yourself, hey, this guy is just a real estate agent trying to convince me to buy something, I want you to understand that every single family situation is completely unique. This may not be the right time for you to cross a state line. So as we dig through the data today, please understand my goal is to inform you, not to convince you. You need to make the absolute best decision for your family's future. If you're wondering who am I and why I can share this street level perspective, my name is Ludwin. Nearly 15 years ago, back in the summer of 2011, my wife Margie and I packed up our family, sold almost everything we owned, and moved down here all the way from New York City. We left behind a tiny basement apartment in Queens because we realized that starting our family inside that cramped city footprint just didn't align with our long-term goals anymore. Now, 4 kids later, we have been living, working, and building our legacy on this Texas side, and we have been absolutely loving every single minute of it. I felt the exact same fear you're feeling right now. I wasn't watching this market as a team leader or an agent back then. I was watching it as a husband and a father who was about to bet his family's entire future on a single decision. That is the exact lens I bring to this video today. I'm not here to give you the industry spin. I'm going to give you exactly what I want to know if I was sitting where you're sitting today. And we need to start here. The scariest numbers in the news reports have nothing to do with the actual neighborhood values. Here's the straight fact that changes the entire real estate conversation. When you see national reports stating that Texas home prices are adjusting, what you're looking at is a massive blended macro average. The media takes high volume builder speculation way out on the distant northern fringes, mixes it together with our core established family suburbs, and puts out one scary number. Let's look at what the local Fort Worth data actually reports when you look at the true street level. If you track single family homes inside our premier established suburbs, places like Keller, Southlake, Grapevine, or the higher coveted sections out west in Aledo, the median sales price is holding incredibly steady, hovering right around $338,000 across Tarrant County. We are seeing a variation less than 1% year over year. That is not a crash, that is the absolute definition of price stability. And here's why this matters directly to your wealth strategy. If you're a relocating family looking for an established single family home in a stable, top rated independent school district with a manageable layout and safe community structure, you're not buying into the speculative market that the crash content is describing. You're buying into an insulated, grounded market that remains completely firm. Remember, the homeowners in these mature Fort Worth suburbs are sitting on record amounts of equity built up over the last 5 to 7 years. They aren't panicked, they aren't facing adjustable rate mortgage resets, and they have absolutely zero intention of dropping their prices 20% just to move an asset. Our West Side market is built on traditional long-term home ownership. People move to these specific communities to plant deep roots, raise their families with exceptional school zones, and protect their quality of life. The fundamental family demand does not simply evaporate because interest rates fluctuate. It creates a powerful protective baseline for local home values that keep our neighborhoods incredibly secure. And here's what that gets interesting, because the active inventory story is the one the media uses to generate the most panic, but the street level truth is a massive gift to your family. You have probably seen the alarming posts on social media shouting that inventory is climbing and supply is exploding across North Texas. Because back in 2008, the last time you heard language like that, it preceded a massive drop in values. So let's look at the actual local numbers and put them into true perspective. As of right now, the Fort Worth single family market has scaled to approximately 3.4 months of housing supply. Now that's 3.4 months. Now economists technically define a balanced market as one that represents total equilibrium between buyers and sellers. And that sits between 4 and 6 months of supply. Now what that means is that even with all the listings hitting the market, Fort Worth is still technically operating in a highly stable, neutral territory that leans slightly in favor of sellers due to our limited supply still. Remember where we were just a couple years ago during the pandemic frenzy? We were sitting at less than 1 month of housing supply. That's where you had those crazy toxic bidding wars where families were forced to waive structural inspections, pay tens of thousands of dollars over asking, and sign all the consumer protections just out of pure desperation because there were almost nothing available to buy. Going from less than a month's worth of inventory to nearly 3.5 months of supply sounds intense when a news blog calls it a major surge. But in reality, it means that the market has finally normalized into a healthy, functional environment. It means you finally have the luxury of time to make a careful, qualified decision for your family's future. What our clients are experiencing on the ground right now is that they can actually think. On a standard resale home, buyers are successfully negotiating an average of 2 to 3% off the asking price, with many properties closing roughly about 98% of the original list price. You can actually tour multiple homes over a weekend instead of rushing into the first property you see. You can schedule a second showing in a house so you can walk the neighborhood streets and ensure you are fully comfortable with your local traffic and layout. You can ask for sellers' concessions for the first time in years because sellers are actively saying yes. Now, this balanced market is literally built for the exact way careful, analytical families prefer to make decisions. But let's look at the days on market metric, because this is another data point that is widely misunderstood. Now, let's take for an example, a house sitting on the market for 45 to 55 days. Days on market is your due diligence window. A house sitting on the market for 45 to 55 days isn't a warning sign. If you look at it through the right lens, it's an absolute asset to your search process. Right now, single-family homes across Fort Worth are averaging about 47 to 56 days on the market before securing a contract. Last year, that number was sitting closer to 40. If you're a seller, that change means you have to price your home accurately from day one, present the property immaculately, and practice real patience. But if you're a buyer, specifically a family trying to make a careful, thoughtful transition across state lines, this timeline is a beautiful window of opportunity. It means the frantic panic is completely gone. Now here's a real life example. We recently worked with a wonderful family relocating from the Midwest with 2 kids. They called me completely stressed out, convinced that they were going to have to write an offer within 24 hours of stepping off the plane, or they lose out on everything. Because the homes they liked have been sitting active on the market for several weeks, we were able to tour multiple communities over the course of a few days without any panic. When we went back to the top 2 properties that they liked, we ran detailed insurance estimates, we verified the exact school district zones and boundaries, and we looked closely at the structural history of the foundation. Because we had that time window, we were able to negotiate a clean seller concession at closing that covered a significant portion of their upfront closing costs. None of that contract flexibility was humanly possible a few years ago. Now, the current market is giving you the structural ability to buy the right house for the legacy instead of just settling for a house out of pure desperation. It means sellers are willing to negotiate, and you don't have to bet your family's financial future on a frantic 48-hour decision. Now, let's address the absolute right question. question to focus on. What is going to stop the Fort Worth market from sliding downward? What is the actual economic floor? To understand why our local values are so intensely insulated, we have to look at what exactly causes a real estate housing collapse. For a market to cave in, you need reckless, unregulated lending at a massive scale, a secure macro oversupply of inventory, and a widespread panic selling driven by massive job losses. All three of those economic disasters happened at once back in 2008. But let's look at our local reality today. Mortgage underwriting standards are completely different from that era. The buyers who are closing on homes in our market today are highly qualified, heavily vetted, and possesses verified income and excellent credit profiles. The default risk of today's homeowner looks absolutely nothing like the past. Furthermore, our inventory levels are sitting at a balanced 3 to 4 months, not the 18 or 24 months of supply we saw during the crash. And here's the ultimate floor that protects your real estate asset out west: local job growth and structural population migration. The greater Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex remains one of the single fastest growing corporate regions in the United States. But out here in Fort Worth side, our economic footprint is uniquely diverse and highly stable. We are anchored by massive long-term industrial, aerospace, logistics, and technology corridors. Pillars like the Alliance Texas Development, Lockheed Martin, American Airlines, and major healthcare networks. Why does this core economic data matter so much to your personal move? Because jobs are the ultimate floor for real estate values. People move where the employment is, and those families fundamentally require housing. Our population is expanding because our economy is vibrant, and that creates permanent structural demand for single-family homes inside our top-rated school zones. When you combine consistent job creation, steady population influx, and limited housing supply, a market crash becomes mathematically improbable. The transactional market has adjusted from the unsustainable frenzy of the past, but the core economic fundamentals of the West Side remain completely intact. Now, I'll tell you, all real estate is hyper-local, and where you choose to buy across our side of the map matters intensely. The market shift is not uniform. It behaves entirely different depending on the specific community. So the question is, where is the market shift most visible out here? It is concentrated actually almost entirely within the high-growth northern expansion corridors, stretching up the I-35 West corridor through the outer tracts of Haslett, Justin, and into Denton County. These are the sectors where the national volume builders have been actively delivering new construction inventory onto raw land. Because builders cannot afford to let completed inventory sit vacant on the books, they are competing fiercely for qualified buyers. This is exactly where you possess massive negotiating leverage right now. If you are looking at brand new construction in these northern tracts, builders are actively offering those incredible interest rates, buy downs, and design center credits to move their inventory. That is a highly actionable avenue of opportunity for budget conscious buyers. But let's look at the other side of the coin. The question of where has the market remained completely bulletproof is super important. The actual answer is it is inside our established landlocked neighborhoods that are closer to the historic cores. Neighborhoods inside Keller proper, mature sections of Southlake, and out west into the elite Aledo ISD boundaries. The families buying into these established communities aren't short-term real estate speculators or interest rate gamblers. They are traditional families who care deeply about long-term stability, neighborhood safety, and positioning their children inside exceptional school zones. They do the math, they find a home that fits their lifestyles, and then they secure it for the long haul. Because these neighborhoods are fully developed and have no raw land left for builders to flood with new supply, values stay incredibly insulated. So when it comes to the logic of local maps, remember that the market offers massive actionable concessions in our northern expansion communities, but maintains a complete pricing resilience inside our established legacy suburbs. The question isn't simply, is the market dropping? The real question is, where is the market offering a structural opportunity, and does that specific neighborhood match my family's ideal daily routine? Now, let's bring all this together into a clearer snapshot. Here's what the real data shows us on the ground for the Fort Worth market. Single-family home values in our core suburban tracts are remaining highly stable, with median prices holding firm around $338,000. The scary news headlines are completely incomplete. Our housing inventory has normalized to a balanced 3 to 4 months of supply on a standard single-family home, representing a healthy neutral equilibrium, not an oversupply crisis. Properties are averaging about 50 days on the market, which means the frantic panic is gone and you finally have the leverage of time to make a careful decision for your family estate. Our local pricing floor remains completely secure because our regional employment footprint is really strong. Major industrial and technological corridors are continually expanding, and our population growth is structural. The baseline demand for housing inside our top-rated school boundaries hasn't doesn't change. The artificial over asking phase has simply come off the top. Now, here's my honest read on this market. And after living here for nearly 15 years, the families I worry about aren't the ones who are choosing to buy a home right now. The families I genuinely worry about are the ones who are letting a generic national headline talk them completely out of a decision they have been building towards for months, if not years. Good stewardship of your family's next chapter isn't about trying to time the macroeconomy perfectly or waiting for a crash that the data shows isn't coming. It's about understanding exactly what the hyperlocal market is doing on the street level, looking past aversions designed to generate panic and making a calculated decision from a place of absolute clarity instead of fear. And that is my sincere hope for your family. Now, if you want to run the real numbers on a specific Fort Worth neighborhood, verify the true tax certificates, pull the localized school boundaries, or run accurate insurance and carrying cost estimates on a property, that is exactly what my team and I do every single day. We have guided hundreds of families throughout this exact transition. And the first conversation we ever have with anyone who reaches out to us is just that, a normal, friendly conversation. There are no high pressure sales pitches, no obligation, and no corporate fluff. I've left a direct link right down in the description box below that takes you straight to our calendar page. Click that link, find a time that works best for your schedule, and we will jump on a private Zoom call together. We will open up the real-time maps, audit your potential commutes, look at the true inventory levels, and figure out whether moving out west makes sense for your family's footprint. And if so, which exact pocket matches your lifestyle best. I'm also going to leave 2 more videos right here on the screen to keep your local research moving forward smoothly. Until next time, my name is Ludwin. Go out there and live that Texas life, and we will see you real soon in the next video.